Hello, everyone. Master Eod is here. Real Patriots are standing by. So true. Big facts. Real Patriots are standing by. Happy Random Artist here. Catholic Samurai's here. HG Moss is here. Zachary Holler is here. Theodore Lombardi and Gage Bond. How's everybody doing? I apologize. I have to wear the glasses that reflect the screens tonight because I have ran a stream with the day job earlier, so my eyes are tired already. So I hope everybody's having a great day. Michael Craig, hello from Indiana. Should I bring you back a coconut? You should bring me back all kinds of things, dude. Because I had to pretend to be you last night at poker, apparently, and just get absolutely just... Oh, it was a bad night. It was a bad night. It was a bad night. I don't know what happened last night. I did not play well, did not play like myself. And, a grass hula skirt then. Okay. All right. I hate you. Anyway, I hope everybody had a good week. How's everybody doing? Is everybody doing well? I hope everybody's doing well. So tonight we have, we're going to react to the Pints with Aquinas video about the death penalty, and we're also going to be, just ordered a new fountain pen with purple iron gall ink. I seem to have lost my Lamy Safari limited edition, which is frustrating to me. But we're going to be reacting to the Pints with Aquinas video about the Kirk assassin getting the death penalty. I got permission from Matt to watch it. Just want to be clear that if I know the reactor, I make sure to, the original creator, I do try to make sure to get permission. And then we'll be discussing the feud on Twitter over the friend-enemy distinction between Matt Walsh and James Lindsay. And we will be discussing it using this book, The Church Against the State by Andrew Willard Jones. Because there's an essay in this book. So there's a series of essays. I've talked about it before. I've talked about it a lot on stream. But there's a series of essays. There's an essay in this book called The Decision Against Carl Schmitt, which is on the friend-enemy distinction. Yet another instance of the New Polity guys being years ahead of the curve and understanding what is coming. So we will be discussing this essay. It is rather long. It's like 30 pages. So obviously we will not be discussing all of it. Wouldn't be able to fit all of it in a video. Wouldn't probably be able to fit all of it in a stream, to be frank with you guys. This, like I said, I got this, I'll be reading it from Dr. Jones's new book. You should all go get Dr. Jones's new book on New Polity Press. But also, you should just go read it. And I will be reading it. I'll be reading it from the book because I had to take notes in it because it is so complicated and so smart that I needed to be underlining and putting notes in the margins and stuff. But you guys should go read this essay, and I will... Hello? I will be... Let me drop this in the chat real quick. I can't... I always forget that I can't just drop stuff in the chat directly from Streamlabs, which is super annoying. Thanks, Streamlabs. I love that. It's not upsetting or dumb in any way. Let me open the live chat here so I can post the link for you guys. Actually, I'll just post it in the description. So, hold on just a second. There you go. Okay, so if you guys refresh now, you should be able to see the live, if you refresh your YouTubes now, you'll be able to see the link to the decision against Carl Schmitt in the YouTube chat, and it is wild how good it is. Very, very good essay. Cannot recommend it highly enough. to be frank. So please do read it. But like I said, we'll be discussing from it tonight. So if you are interested in it, or you're wanting to follow along with quotes from it, get a little more context, it is there. We'll also be reacting to a couple videos here. So I'll get those YouTube links in the description as well. Settings. Here we go. Let me get these. Here we go. Sorry, couldn't find the button. So this is the video on Charlie Kirk's assassin on Pines with Aquinas, and then we'll also be watching a short excerpt from this episode with Ed Phaser. Hello? Oh, shoot. Dude, I am not used to, I use a different web browser for streaming, just out of safety, so I don't accidentally show work stuff. The link isn't turning up for me, unfortunately. Well, let's try to fix that, huh? They're both there. Just refresh. They're all three there. So, yeah. So we'll be doing a lot of reading tonight. We'll be doing a lot of discussion of theory, and I don't know what we're going to do for Fun Friday yet. But we got a suggestion in the Discord. It's an old Studio C video, which is a classic. So we might do that. We might not. We'll see. Anyway, I hope everybody is having a great night. Christian Chiola is here. How you doing, Chiola? Let's just do that. Oh, well, we'll fix that later. I shouldn't have done that, but we will fix it later. Anyway, I hope everyone is doing well. Oh, wait, I should show you guys this. Look at my look at my portrait of Richard Nixon I got today at the antique store. It's from the 60s. On the back of it, inside the frame, it says this is a reproduction of the president's signature. So, it does say the president's, which means it is produced sometime between 1969 and 1973. So, yeah, it's a cool portrait of Richard Nixon I got today. And I got some campaign pins of Nixon's. This is one of my favorites. I got this, Win with Nixon. So that's fun. Should I put that on? It's definitely putting a big old hole in my shirt. Oh my. Oh my. Oh my. There we go. Got my Win with Nixon pin. Yeah. We love Richard Nixon. Nixon did nothing wrong. So, I hope everyone is well. I hope your families are well. I went to confession today. That was nice. I got told I looked very mid-century today. Oh, crap. That's not good, is it? Uh-oh. Hold on. Camera came unplugged, huh? That's no good. Is the camera on? The camera is on. Oh, there we go. We're back. I guess we're back. Uh-oh. This is fine. So, yes. Camera came unplugged. You ruined it. I don't know what happened. I bumped one of these cables. HG Moss, check it if it works. Thank you so much for the donation, HG Moss. I appreciate it. It does work. And we have our I did get the overlay set up. So I hope you guys like them. They're the overlays we used to use back in the day when we were just gaming. So thank you so much for the donation, though. Yeah. I don't think TTS is on, but I could probably turn it on. Do you guys want TTS? Do you guys want TTS? Yes, please. All right, we'll turn on TTS. Hold on. Nobody do it yet. I'll get TTS on. Alert box. Sound is on. How do I do TTS? Tips. Here we go. Text to speech enabled. Let's just test it.
This is a test donation for $23.
Can you guys hear that? Did you guys hear this is a test donation for $23? Yep, you did? All right, hold on. Let's double check it. Let's double check it because that was through the browser. So let's double check it. Okay, we're good. It froze for a second, huh? All right. Well, we'll leave it on. If it keeps freezing, we might have to turn it off. But TTS is on. I guess I'll change the stream title too to TTS on. I'll add TTS enabled to the stream title. There you go. I might make a minimum. Not going to make a minimum. We're good. All right, we're good. Cool. I hope everybody's having a good night, though. All right, we're going to start with... I think we're going to start... Let me decide what we're going to start with. What do you guys want to start with? Do you guys want to start with... friend, enemy, and politics, which I'm serious, guys. Like, when I said I, spent a bunch of time prepping, obviously we can't get through all this, but I had to read all of this to make sure that I understood what the points were being made. So I did read all of this. I read, not the whole book, but I did read the whole essay and was, paid really close attention. Yeah. Very much tried to pay as much attention as I could. So, what do we want, guys? What do we want first? Do we want, you guys want to do friend enemy first, or do you want to do the death penalty and the Kirk assassin first? It is up to you guys. Somebody say something so I can do it. Just somebody pick. Somebody pick. Anybody pick. I see we have 14 people watching. If you haven't said hi in the chat, make sure to say hi in the chat. It does help us out if you just say hi in the chat. Helps with engagement. Helps tell YouTube that the stream is good. Dude, the Christian Chiola and HG Boss's donation came in basically simultaneously, but Chiola's came in first. I said whoever went first would get it. So let's do the Kirk Assassin first. I did say whoever would, but Christian. If you're a good Schmidian / Jungler, you'll make the decision, do whichever. See, the thing is, okay, I said that, right? But I'm going to say that the state of exception is that HG Moss donated to help keep the streams going. So we're going to start with the one he wanted, right? So I make I'm the decider, and I decide the state of exception. That's a joke. That's a joke literally just for Legate. I know that 90% I don't think anybody else watching will understand the joke I just did there. But we're going to start with friend enemy. So, and now HG Moss is generously giving it to Christian, but I'm the decider. I'm the decider. Okay, let's do it then.
That if I walk out of this building...
Don't start yet. All right, let me look at the camera and do the intro. Huh? Let's do the intro. Streamlabs should add never mind. Hello, everyone. Welcome to Sanity Revolt. Today, we'll be talking about a recent Twitter feud / debate over the friend-enemy distinction between Matt Walsh and James Lindsay. I'll be using a essay called The Decision Against Carl Schmitt, which can be found on New Polity's website. Link in the description to that essay if you'd like to read it in full. You can also find it in the New Polity magazine. Specifically, I don't remember which issue this is in, actually. I will make sure in the description that there's a link to the specific issue of the magazine that this essay is in. And my favorite way to read this essay is to get The Church Against the State by Andrew Willard Jones. This book is a collection of Dr. Jones's, I'm not going to say Dr. I mean, he's Dr. Jones, but also he's a friend of mine. So this is a collection of Dr. Jones's best essays. So we've got my two favorite ones are actually close to the back. The Decision Against Carl Schmitt, of course, will be the one we'll be talking about today. And then Socialism and Capitalism is one of my favorite essays he's ever written. But it was given as a talk at Franciscan, and it was just a killer talk. And I used to think about it all the time, but now they've published it, rewritten. He's rewritten that talk and published it here. So the only place you can find my favorite essay / talk by Andrew Jones, the only place you can find it is to buy The Church Against the State on New Polity Press. And I am saying that because they are my friends, and I want you to give them money and support them, and it will support my community. So if you want to support me, like and subscribe. If you want to support my community, which I would really appreciate even more than just supporting my little hobby horse politics here, I would really love it if everybody would please purchase this book from New Polity Press. So thank you so much for any consideration you give to that, and thank you just for watching and for supporting the community I live in and the people I live in community with. All right, so to get started with this, we're going to watch a couple clips of, we're going to watch a clip of Walsh that is kind of the kicking off point of this on Twitter. It's not the kicking off point. As you'll see, it'll be referred to as the second time. I couldn't really find the first time. So the first time thing will just not be, I don't remember what it is. It's really unimportant because we're going to be talking less about the specific things said and more about where both Walsh and Lindsay are totally missing the point of the friend-enemy distinction and the arguments that are proper to be made on this and what it really is and what the real problems with it are, and not just random stuff about this, that, or the other thing. So, you know, you guys will see as we get into it here. So we'll watch this. We're going to start with this clip here. It's 40 seconds long. I don't really think I'm going to interrupt this clip at all, but we'll just watch it. Of course, this clip is from when Matt Walsh, Michael Knowles, and Ben Shapiro hosted the Charlie Kirk show this week. We offer up prayers for Charlie's soul and for his widow and his children. But we're going to go ahead and watch this clip.
That if I walk out of this building and I get killed, that every conservative, even the ones that I've feuded with, that they will not be happy about that. They will mourn that. They will mourn that, and the same if it happened to any of us. They'll mourn it. Even the people, the conservatives, didn't like us. But I also know that on the left, they won't share in that mourning for the most part. And so kind of the friend-enemy distinction is easy for me to see. The people who will mourn your death are your friends. The people who will dance on your grave and laugh in the face of your grieving wife are your enemies in this battle, and so that's where the unity needs to come.
The wretched demons, honestly.
Okay, I want you guys to remember this line right here.
Every conservative, even the ones that I've feuded with, that they will not be happy about that. They will mourn that. They will mourn that, and the same if it happened to any of us. They'll mourn it. Even the people, the conservatives, didn't like us. But I also know that on the left, they won't share in that mourning for the most part. And so,
okay, I want you guys to remember that line right there. And real quick, I know this video, you guys can't see the chat on the post-recorded video if you're watching this, if you're not in the stream, but my dad is watching. Hi, Dad. Everybody say hi to my dad in the chat is Tiger B. But I know that, well, hold on. I can just turn this on real quick. Let me just, oh, wait, the chat is on for the, oh, yeah, the chat is on for the post-record. So everybody can see the post-record and stream. Say hi to my dad. Thanks for watching, Dad. That's very nice. That makes me feel good. So what Walsh is saying is he's saying his friends are the people who want him to be alive and who would be sad if he was dead. And his enemies are the people who would celebrate that. And so he's calling that the friend-enemy distinction. Now, as we'll get into in a little bit, that is not what the friend-enemy distinction is. So I want to be clear from the outset. I'm not defending the friend-enemy distinction. I think and if you're unfamiliar with what the friend-enemy distinction is, a really great, simple way to explain it is the idea that the fundamental, what makes something political is enmity. It's the ability to declare friends and enemies. But when Schmidt talks about this, and I can find this line here, ba-ba-da-bum, da-da-da-da. Well, I can't find the line from Jones here, but Schmidt never defines what makes something friend, but it defines what makes something enemy. And the friends are the people who are united in their enmity. So the thing that is prioritized, the thing that is first, is enmity, not friendship. So friendship is defined by the privation of enmity, not enmity by the privation of friendship. In Schmidt's thinking, I want to be clear that that's what Schmidt says. I don't believe that's what Matt Walsh is saying. And the reason I want to draw this out right at the start is because what Matt Walsh is saying is friendship are the people in whom I have things, the people with whom I have things in common, such that we can work together against people with whom we have less in common, which is, and this is a great point, right? In Aquinas says this. Aquinas says, according to Augustine, we should love our enemies as to nature, but not as to fault. So we should love the nature of our enemies, the human nature of our enemies, but not as to his fault. Hence, your adversary is to be loved in what he shares with you, and as also appears among natural things. For white is opposed to black as it is unalike, as black is not a color. White is opposed to black as it is unalike, as black, not as a color, right? So black and white are not opposed as color. They're both colors, but they are opposed in the nature, to the degree which they are unalike. Hence, we should destroy hatred, i.e., the fact that an enemy should displease us as we should destroy him the fact that he is an enemy should displease us, and we should destroy this in him. So the thing to be destroyed is not the human person, but the thing which makes him an enemy. Okay? And that's from Aquinas' commentary on Matthew 5:44, I believe, which is love your enemies. And there's another, right? There's another quote from St. Thomas. Hence, while preserving charity, I can wish some temporal evil on my neighbor to the extent that it would give him the occasion of doing good and attaining eternal life. Hence, Gregory says in his Morals that the sign that you do not love your neighbor is when you rejoice in his ruin. But I can rejoice in his temporal ruin to the extent that it is ordered to his good, or that of others, or of the multitude. Okay, so we can even wish temporal ruin, temporal harm upon a collective with which we have enmity because there is a degree of difference between us. That's what that is saying, right? That's what those two passages of Thomas are saying. Now, the reason this disagrees with the friend-enemy distinction, right, is that Schmidt argues, and this is from Schmidt, and I'm going to quote, well, I'm not going to quote from Schmidt because I don't have a copy of it on hand, but I'm going to quote from Jones's explanation of Schmidt because it's a really good simplification of this. Schmidt uses this assertion to circumvent the implications of Christ's command. Okay. The climax of okay, so quote, and this is a quote from Schmidt, I believe. Yeah, this is a quote from Schmidt. The enemy is solely the public enemy. Okay. And Schmidt uses this assertion that the private enemy is not a private hatred is not a political act. That's a direct quote. The quote is private hatred, private adversary, the private adversary whom one hates. And private hatred is an apolitical emotion, according to Schmidt, and that's from the concept of the political 33 and 34. So, Schmidt says that private hatred is different from public hatred. Public hatred is proper to collective enemies, which are defined by the sovereign. That's what Schmidt says. Okay. And then this is a quote from from Dr. Jones. Schmidt uses this assertion to circumvent the implications of Christ's command to love your enemies. Having asserted that what is public can be political, Schmidt reads the command as essentially apolitical. And this quote, and this from Schmidt, the often quoted love your enemies, reads dilihite inimikos vestros, and that's from the Vulgate, and then the Greek is the word for enemy is ekthros, not dilihite hostes vestros. No mention is made of the political enemy, unquote. That's from Schmidt, and that is Concept of the Political 29. Jones says, and this is Jones goes on to point this out, Schmidt's exegesis depends entirely on the idea that ekthros are exclusively private adversaries of personal rancor, but never political enemies and objects of war. This is not how the word is used elsewhere in the Holy Scriptures. Mary proclaims the power of Christ, whom promises to give Israel, quote, salvation from our enemies, and the word for enemies used is ekthros, the Greek word ekthros, and from the hands of those who hate us, unquote, which could hardly have been limited to a private enemy. Jesus quotes the divine promise to make King David's enemies, ekthros is once again the word used, his footstool in parables. The word used to denote explicitly political enemy, as when the enemies of a king refuse his rule. But here, bring those enemies, ekthros, of mine, who did not want me to reign over them, and slay them before me. Luke 19:27. In the Vulgate, things are even worse for Schmidt. From the first appearance of inimikos, and you shall chase your enemies, and they shall fall before you by the sword. Leviticus 26:7. Throughout the entirety of the Old Testament into the New, inimikos are the political enemies more clearly than the personal. It is the enemy against whom Israel wars, the enemy about whom the Lord says to David, sit at my right hand, and I will make your enemies your footstool. Schmidt makes a distinction that the Scriptures simply do not sustain. The Scriptures know that the enemy of the nation and the enemy of man cannot but be at the point of battle the same. Cannot but be at the point of battle the same. Okay, so at the point of battle, the distinction being made here that Jones makes earlier in the essay is that Schmidt claims that the point of defining enemies is to have a constant threat of physical killing, and that's what politics lies in. And that's what politics lies in. And this is the essential problem with Schmidt's politics. It's based in violence, not peace. And so the problem here is that when the violence is actually carried out, the act of physical killing, and this is from Jones, physical killing is always personal. One cannot maintain a private-public distinction when one is bashing in another man's skull with the butt of a gun or flying a drone into his apartment. At the moment of killing, the public enemy is the personal enemy because killing is done by men, not by states or organized political entities, no matter that one kills in their name or under their flag. So, the Scripture makes it very clear that if enmity reaches the point of physical killing, it is both a private and public act. And they are one in the same. So the idea that the command to love our enemies might only be public and therefore only political, and therefore we are allowed, what's the word I'm looking for? Allowed, permitted to hate public or political enemies is simply not sustained in Scripture, which is why the quotes from Aquinas on what enmity and friendship are, enmity is an absence of friendship, not friendship and absence of enmity, right, are really important. So while Walsh is saying the words friend-enemy distinction, Walsh clearly actually means something which is found in Aquinas. He's saying that friendship is a positive thing, right? It's a thing which exists, and enmity is a thing which which only exists insofar as it is an absence of friendship. Walsh's friendship with an individual, in the public sense, the public friendship, is their value for each other's lives, and his enmity with a group or an individual is their lack of value of his life. So there we go. That's all right. Are we good? I think that's a pretty good breakdown of that. Yeah. Here's another good one, another good piece of evidence. Saint Bernard wrote of such warriors, quote, "Surely if he kills an evildoer, he is not a man killer, but if I may so put it, an evil killer." The great saint could assert with confidence, "Let both swords of the faith, but let both swords of the faithful fall upon the necks of their enemies, inimicorum, which is the same word used in the Vulgate, to the destruction of every lofty thing lifting up itself against the knowledge of God. Okay? So, friends are real things, enemies are absent, people with whom we have an absence of friendship, but with whom we would like to destroy that which has created that lacking. Okay. Wait, doesn't that mean that he deems that killing in war is always an act of hatred? Schmidt, or who are we talking about? Schmidt, or he's saying that it's always an act of, he's saying that it's not. Schmidt is asserting that killing in war is actually not a personal act of hatred. It's an act of hatred, but it's a hatred which is permitted because it's against a public enemy, because Schmidt, while insisting to not be a liberal, is a liberal because he does believe in the false dichotomy between the public and the private realm. We must still be careful that we are not simply excusing our hatred by way of saying, oh, I'm celebrating their downfall because it could lead them to Christ. Yeah, Master Eon, I understand what you're saying, but when we're teasing out principles and the example being given for the discussion of the principle in this case is one in which the downfall we are wishing for is expressly so that they are crippled in their ability to harm us and harm the innocent. It's like a, I understand what you're saying, but it's not super relevant to the current discussion on the friend-enemy distinction because we're trying to deal with theory, not with the exception. A weakness I'd point out is that the use of ekthros, and I can't pronounce that other Greek word in scripture and other Greek texts. I just went through the use, so you would have to provide me with like an explicit example. Also, even if the Greek seems to be suggesting that, because the Catholic Church has an official Bible, which is the Vulgate, and inimikos is used by the saints and in the Vulgate in other places. The alert box. Okay. Okay, I'm going to turn off TTS, guys. I'm going to have to turn TTS off because it's freezing the stream. Okay, I think we're back. I had to turn the TTS off. Okay. Yeah, you'd have to point out some examples of that, Legate, where ekthros is used explicitly as private, but Scripture does use it in a public sense, as Jones showed, and also, as I was saying, that's what I was saying, inimikos, which is the Latin translation, the Vulgate, so the official translation of the Church, is used for collective enemies often in the Scriptures and by the saints. For what it's worth, I disagree that Schmidt was fundamentally a liberal. After the video, we can get into that because I don't know if you've read the decision against Carl Schmidt, but there's some stuff on that. There's some specific arguments for Schmidt being a liberal in this essay as well. So, okay. All right. Returning to this video. For the second day in a row, Matt Walsh has explicitly made the friend-enemy distinction a concept penned by Carl Schmitt, the chief jurist of the Third Reich, and he does so in front of Ben Shapiro on the Charlie Kirk podcast. All right, this is just... I saw somebody say recently that just because the Nazis said something doesn't mean that it was wrong, right? They're not anti-oracles. So the fact that somebody was a Nazi doesn't make everything they ever said wrong. Like, by that logic, like, Hitler liked dogs, therefore liking dogs is evil. So, like, this throwing in of, like, Schmitt was a Nazi is a rhetorical device that, while effective, is not an argument. So let's just start there. Let's give Matt Walsh the benefit of the doubt and assume that he doesn't understand that what he is saying or its origin. Flippant use of the friend-enemy distinction is extremely reckless and irresponsible. Matt loses credibility for not doing his due diligence in researching the concept, but if Matt even understands the superficial aspects of Carl Schmitt, then he knows he is quoting not only a Nazi, but a major political figure in the forming of Hitler's philosophy and evil enterprise. Like, this is one, like, okay, I'm not going to keep saying it, but, like, just saying somebody was a Nazi is not necessarily a rebuttal of everything they ever said. But I do agree. I do think Matt Walsh, like, I personally do think Matt Walsh has a fundamental misunderstanding of what the friend-enemy distinction is. So there's that. More likely, this is a direct or thinly veiled attack on the fundamental liberal tenet of the Constitution, where we the people are the sovereign, instead of, according to Schmitt, the sovereign makes that existential distinction between friend and enemy in the political sphere, and the sovereign is not going to be you, the people. It will be your infallible leader or government who has total authority. If you're an American patriot, you must understand what he is saying here, and the sheer balls Matt has to do it in front of Shapiro. Okay, once again, the sheer balls Matt has to do it in front of Shapiro. Like, this is just, like, when people are incapable of making an actual argument on a political philosophy or political theory position from only the political philosophy and the political, like, only on the argument and the philosophy and the theory, but have to throw in three or four instances, this person was a bad person, it sends up red flags for me that you are not capable of engaging with the actual theory, which, like I said, I disagree with Schmitt. I don't think the friend-enemy distinction holds up, but this is clearly idiotic. Like, this is clearly not how you do political theory. Michael Knowles, I'm going to assume that's supposed to be Andrew Klavan, and Ben Shapiro do not allow the emotional turmoil in to excuse this behavior from Matt. It is your duty to stand up against authoritarianism in all forms. Talk to Matt, explain what he's doing, and if he's unapologetic, he is the actual enemy to freedom. Okay. So the only argument in this whole tirade is, and the only argument is, like, everything else can go away. It's just rhetoric, right? The only actual substantive argument is, according to Schmitt, the sovereign makes the existential distinction between friend and enemy in the political sphere, and the sovereign is not going to be we the people. It will be the infallible leader or government who has total authority. That's the only argument. Okay? Now, the reason we're talking about this specific tweet is because this is the tweet that Lindsay responds to, so we're going to have to talk about this one specifically. But let's just quote here from Andrew Jones again. One can see why a Christian might be inspired by Schmitt's description. Supposedly ideal forms like the right to privacy, supposedly neutral forms like the public square, and supposedly non-ideological institutions like the Supreme Court are, as we constantly see, tools used to attack and demean Christianity and its vision for the political order. It turns out that far from it coexisting with the neutral space of politics, Christians are excluded from it. After reading Schmitt, the idea that Christian ends can be reached by negotiating for fair outcomes in officially quote-unquote neutral political institutions appears frankly pathetic. Schmidt is a solvent dissolving our lingering liberal childishness. Christians must actually wield power necessary to win the war. Declare evil men, quote-unquote, enemies, found institutions, enforce order, and direct citizens towards good ends. Okay. But Carl Schmitt was wrong to locate the essence of the political in the capacity to declare the friend-enemy distinction. So the problem, right? So this is, it is like, what is this? The idea that we, the people, can be sovereign is cyclical because you would need an institution to manage that. It's also just disproven by American history, frankly, right? Like, when we, the people, wanted to be sovereign and state, hey, we're not going to be locked in our houses, you were banned from the internet, right? It just didn't work. It just didn't happen. So the idea that a collective of people can be the sovereign, right, or be complete, like, rule over themselves effectively, is not only it just doesn't make sense, but it's also disproven by recent historical events. Someone has to make the decision or someone has to enforce the will of the people. If the will of the people is the thing which is ruling, there has to be a mechanism to enforce it. And that mechanism must contain people and have people in charge of other people within the mechanism. And those people are choosing to obey the will of the people or not. Therefore, they are the ones actually making the decision. They may be being informed and obeying the will of a collective of the people, but that doesn't mean that if they decided we're just not going to do it, they could do that. They did it in 2020 with the election, and they did it with COVID. It just happened. It just happened. This is extremely naive. So, there we go. That's that. Okay. I don't want to read all this. We're not going to read all this. Okay, here's Lindsay replying to that Walsh clip in the tweet we just read. There are simply two choices here. Matt knows what he's doing and is doing something wicked, or Matt is out of his depth and belligerent about being corrected. There are wait, hold on. So Walsh responded first. We have to go in order. So Walsh responded to this tweet by this Jordan Henry guy. Wow, I didn't know Nazis invented the idea of distinguishing between friends and enemies. Apparently there were no enemies before the Nazis made up the idea. You're right, Jordan. I'm a Nazi because I think that people who want me dead are my enemies. Only Nazis would arrive at that conclusion. Okay. Walsh is making a pretty good point there. That, like, friends and enemies pre-exist all of this stuff. Like, it just doesn't make sense to insist that calling someone an enemy makes you a Nazi. And the Bible agrees, right? Like, the idea that there aren't enemies, and that you can't know who they are is, like, really stupid. So Lindsay is saying that Walsh is either being purposefully evil or he's out of his depth and being belligerent about it. So he's either purposefully evil or he's unpurposefully evil, which is also a false dichotomy. There are multiple choices. You could think, like I think, that Walsh has a misunderstanding of what the friend-enemy distinction actually means, but is making a good point and using the wrong vocabulary for it and has good intentions. Okay, there's a third solution, James. So we don't really have to read all this because I came up with a third solution. So now the rest of this is mute, but we're gonna. The friend-enemy distinction is not some idle phrase Matt just happens to be thrown around. That's a terrible sentence. Okay. It comes from the writing of Carl Schmitt, who was the crown jurist of the Third Reich. Schmitt developed the idea in a book at length in 1932 called the concept of the political. His argument is that all of politics boils down to, at bottom, an existential conflict between friends, by which he means allies, the same way trans people use it. No, he doesn't mean it the same way. Carl Schmitt did not mean friend the same way the LGBTQ mob uses it in 2025. I'm not even going to come up with a refutation for that. It's so stupid. And enemies, by which he means what Matt is saying, the political enemies, hostis in Latin. Okay, so Lindsay is, and not personal enemies, inimicis. So Lindsay also is, if we're talking about people who are out of their depth, Lindsay is out of his depth. Inimicis is, according to Schmitt, different, but according to the scripture, it is actually not. So he calls this existential concept of the political the friend-enemy distinction. Matt either knows this or he doesn't, and both are failures of his responsibility here as a prominent voice. One is evil, the other is negligent. Once again, not the only two options. The very next year, Schmitt joined the Nazi Party and gave full authority of his work and all of his political thought to the Nazi project. In 1933, soon after joining, he wrote an essay I have attained and translated called The Legal Basis for the Total State, in which he justifies Nazi totalitarianism. Totalitarianism absolutely for Hitler. It was on this basis that he was recognized as the crown jurist of the Third Reich. In that he writes, National Socialism does not think abstractly and soullessly. It is an existence of everything that is normative and functional. It secures and cultivates every genuine form of popular justice, wherever it finds it in the countryside, in the tribes, or in the social classes. It created the peasant inheritance. It saved the peasantry. It purged the German civil service of foreign elements and thereby restored it as a social class. It has the courage to treat unequal things unequally and to enforce necessary distinctions. Okay, that's a pretty terrible passage. Obviously, this is terrible. That's a pretty terrible passage. But hold on. Let's just keep following Lindsay here. Let's see where Lindsay's going to go with it, okay? Because I get the feeling, I have a sneaking suspicion he's going to get the thing wrong with it wrong. That's the opening sentences. The next paragraph continues the thought provided here in full. However, recognition of the diversity of organic life would immediately lead to an unfortunate pluralistic fragmentation of the German people along religious, ethnic, class, and interest lines if a strong state did not elevate and secure the whole of political unity above all diversity. Every political unity requires a unifying internal logic for its institutions and norms. It needs a unified concern that shapes all areas of public life. In this sense, too, there is no normal state that is not totalitarian. As diverse as the perspectives on the regulations and institutions of the various spheres of life are a unified, consistent main principle must be recognized and upheld. Any uncertainty or conflict becomes a starting point for formations that are initially neutral toward the state, but later becomes hostile to it, and a point of entry for pluralistic fragment. Okay, and it goes on. Okay. Don't miss it. Schmitt really did say that in the sense of what National Socialism exists to accomplish, it is normal, which makes it totalitarian. Yeah, that's bad. This is still not an argument against what Matt Walsh actually said. It's an argument against the vocabulary he's using. Okay? He argues that what makes it so, what justifies it is its willingness to treat unequal things, including friends and enemy, unequal. What justifies it further is a complete unity based on a unifying concern, that is the friend-enemy distinction. Matt Walsh's reply, quoted below, is deflecting from the fact that Schmitt's friend-enemy distinction was the legal basis for totalitarianism in the Nazi state, on the basis that other tyrants have acted similarly. Completely irresponsible, either maliciously or negligently, and it cannot be allowed to stand as some kind of wisdom, much less an olive branch. He used the exact term more than once. He didn't say the friend-enemy distinction is an olive branch. That's not what he said. He said he extended an olive branch and it was shot down. He didn't say the friend-enemy distinction is necessarily the olive branch. He didn't say you had to agree with him on using the word to accept the olive branch. I don't agree with him on using that term. I think using that term is a really bad idea. I think we should use words that mean what they mean. However, that's just not what he said. James Lindsay is just like it just feels like he's purposefully reading into it what he's just gonna, his whole argument here is that the friend enemy distinction is wrong because tyrannies have used it in various forms, but they haven't even used the words friend enemy distinction, right? So he's saying that if you use the term, you're setting the groundwork for, that's what's setting the groundwork for totalitarianism. But then he's going to go on in the rest of this to talk about them saying other things where where people distinguish, where totalitarian evil leaders distinguish between the people who are in the party and outside the party, or in the in group and outside the in group. And so his argument is, if you use this term, you're setting the groundwork for totalitarianism because it's similar to other totalitarian views. But it's not an argument. The main problem, I actually agree with James Lindsay here that we shouldn't be using this term. The biggest problem here is that James Lindsay is making the dumbest possible argument for that case. His case is, some bad people said this once. Like, he's just going, it goes on, right? It's just Mao, the CCP, Mao and the CCP, the French Revolution, right? That's all he's doing, right? He's saying that the idea came, bad people use this idea. He doesn't actually have, once again, we're going to return to this. He doesn't have an argument against the thing being said, the principle being put forward, okay? But Jones does, right? And in fact, James Lindsay, as a liberal, so a Hobbesian and a Hayek and Locke, right, agrees with Schmitt that the fundamental underlying substrate of human interaction is not Edenic peace, but is war, right? It's conflict. We're not primordially at peace. We're primordially in war. From Jones. For Schmitt, and obviously which words appear political is predetermined by one's definition and theory of politics, which for Schmitt, and in the actual praxis of the European nations gearing up for war, involved Hobbesian presumption of violence. Schmitt here is in fact following the method of Hobbes, who asserted at the outset of Leviathan that the political science is nothing more than working out the meaning of definitions. The quote from Hobbes is really long and really complicated. We can skip that. Let me find this quote on Eden. Okay. Bum, 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 bum. Carl Schmitt was wrong to locate the essence of political in the capacity to declare the friend-enemy distinction. Theologically, he argues that something essential to man, his political nature, is contingent upon an effect of his fall, namely enmity. In order to maintain his definition, Schmidt must either deny that politics is natural to man as part of God's very good creation, and hold, therefore, that it emerges within the contingent realm of sin, or he must contend that the fall was complete, that our natures are totally depraved, rendering whatever form of politics may have had before sin meaningless to our situation. Either way, for Schmidt, our present-day politics have no meaningful relation to the politics of Eden or the politics of the saints. One could argue that even in Eden, the potential enemy is always there, that man is potentially political by nature, even if by virtue of living in accord with the will of God in a perfect peace, he never actually actualizes his political powers. But this leads to a metaphysically untenable idea that man is created with a power that he cannot perfect insofar as he sins. It is akin to arguing that Adam had an adulterous nature which could only be actualized insofar as he sinned, but which remained in potentia insofar as he remained chaste. Fornication, however, is not a power waiting to be perfected. It is a disorienting of the good, life-giving desire for marital unity toward mere pleasure. Similarly, Edenic politics could not be enmity in potentia, a power waiting to be actualized by sin. Edenic politics was something real, a potency of the person that could be lived out in paradise. That's the problem with Schmidt. The problem with Schmidt is that when you locate the fundamental, quote, the essence of the political in the capacity to declare friend and enemy, you make a fundamental aspect of the human person enmity, which is not possible because it would mean that in Eden, prior to the fall, in a perfected state, there would be no politics. But this is simply not the case. Okay? So, all that stuff. And the question is, what is politics? Right? What is politics? Well, politics is, we assert that the essence of the political is the capacity of one person to lead another into virtue within a power distance that obtains between them. That's what politics is. The capacity of one person to lead another into virtue within a power difference that obtains between him. And it is fundamentally peaceful because it is oriented towards peace, which is virtue. That's not a quote from Jones. That's me summarizing a lot of things. So I hope that all made some sense, and I hope I didn't say anything wrong or misrepresent Dr. Jones in any way.